amazing, fabulous, incredible, unbelievable, and my favorite, awesome. I have used these words over and over again in conversation, correspondence with email, social media, texts, to describe events, experiences, places, photos, baked goods, French fries, a sail at Old Navy. Honestly, little, if any of it, was amazing, or fabulous, or incredible, or unbelievable. And none of it was awesome, which by definition means inducing or inspiring awe. A Dunkin' Donuts chocolate chip muffin is really good, but it doesn't inspire awe. As a culture, we have become addicted to superlatives. If it's not incredible or awesome, it has no value. In fact, words describing something as fine or acceptable or okay have become the pariahs of words. We avoid them at all costs. You would never say something was just okay on social media. You'd be suspended by the superlative police. The pressure to be awesome, to constantly exceed all expectations, whether it comes from external sources or from within ourselves, has become so pervasive, particularly among young people, that a 2015 National College Health Assessment Survey reported that 1 in 6 college students had experienced or been treated for anxiety or depression. 1 in 6. That's scary. Being amazing is supposed to be a good thing, but the drive to be incredible at everything all of the time is setting us up for failure. Everything cannot be awesome. It's impossible. And would we want it to be? Because if everything is awesome, nothing is awesome. It's all just the same. Awesomeness is exhausting, particularly since we've determined that if we're not being awesome, we're failing. Awesome isn't a possibility, it's expected. But the relentless pursuit of the superlative, particularly if you're not good at something, will wear you out, stress you out, and cause you to miss opportunities to truly exceed your limits. Now, this is not easy for most of us to hear, but you're not always awesome, even if your mother told you that you were. There are some things that you are never going to be able to do well, even if your mother told you you could do anything you put your mind to. There are many things that you're just going to be okay at, which leads us to that 4-letter word beginning with the letter F. The word is fine. In the past, fine meant something of value, of quality. And now, fine has become synonymous with failure. Several years ago, I was asked to supply the paper products for a baby shower, the theme of which was ladybugs. I spent days trolling the internet and driving from store to store in search of ladybug plates, which are available in abundance now, but they weren't back then. I couldn't find them anywhere. Instead, I ended up with lovely flowered paper plates, which I brought and offered to the hostess with profuse, shame-faced apologies. And you know what? Those plates were fine. People took them, they put food on them, which covered up the design so you couldn't see it anyway, and then they threw them out. No one cared but me. My addiction to awesome, my need to provide the perfect paper plate, cost me sleep, time, energy, and a little bit more of my already slim supply of sanity. That's crazy, right? But our obsession with the superlative is so powerful that it's not always easy for us to see when we're being ridiculous about paper plates or something else of little consequence. Sometimes it takes a crisis to put awesome in its place. On Mother's Day of 2010, I experienced that crisis. That was the day I learned that I was the mother of a heroin addict. Instead of celebrating the holiday with candy and flowers, I spent it on a 2-seat hospital bench waiting to see if my son was going to live or die. David had overdosed, not on heroin, he couldn't get it that day, but on a pain medication that he ingested trying to get the high that he got from heroin. Not only did it land him in the hospital, but it compromised his liver. And the doctors told us that if they couldn't reverse the effects of those pills, he would need a liver transplant if he lived. When you learn that you may lose your child, you're not thinking about awesome. You're thinking about survival. His and yours, should you lose him. Suddenly, everything that once seemed important isn't. David survived the overdose without needing a liver transplant. But that was just the beginning of our journey into the world of addiction that brought us to depths of experience that I could not have imagined. It was there, in those lowest of low places, that I learned the true value of words like fine and acceptable and okay. When life is about survival, about healing, about getting well, you realize that it's okay to let go of an awful lot. Many days were lived in 15-minute increments. That was all we could manage. When we got through 15 minutes, we moved on to the next 15. 15 minutes doesn't give you a lot of time to be amazing. So what you do manage to accomplish can just be fine. It doesn't need to be anything more. Fine becomes the height of the bar by which you live. If it's fine, you accept it and you move on to something more important. As we progressed through David's recovery and eventually sobriety, the lessons of fine and acceptable and okay stayed with me. I didn't know it was going to happen from one moment to the next, so fine was as close to perfect as I hoped to come. And as life gradually became more about living than just surviving, I continued to accept fine and okay as outcomes, turning the energy I saved by not trying to be awesome at everything to things that mattered. Accepting the limits of that situation as it was became freeing, allowing me to focus on what was important, try new things, and let life evolve, because superlatives were off the table. It became easier to look at a situation and quickly decide how much time and energy it was worth, which sometimes was none. That's okay too. The freedom to not even try to be incredible at everything or anything released me from my fear of failure, because even failure was okay, as long as my son survived. I succeeded at some things, I failed at others, and a lot landed somewhere in between. I never worried about how amazing I was. As I began to reclaim my own life, I somehow managed to create a brand after a lot of trying things, hard work, and just seeing what would happen. I am now known as the not ready for granny panties and the dirty words lady. Even I didn't see that coming. I've since written 3 books, become a speaker, a workshop leader, co-founded a podcast, created a life that I couldn't have dreamed of because I ditched my addiction to awesome. I accepted fine, and I even let myself fail. But perhaps more important, I learned to let go and to let life evolve within some limits. And in the process, I ditched much of my anxiety as well. But does all this mean that we don't strive, that we don't aspire to excellence, that we settle for meh? No. But it does mean that we get to pick and choose where we want to be amazing. We get to try things. We get to change our minds. We get to fail. And we get to learn without worrying about being perfect. My husband says to me, work your brilliance. And my brilliance is not a lot of things. I'm okay with that. Those are limits that I am perfectly willing to accept. Because when I surrender the things that I'm not good at, and I'm working my brilliance, then I know I have the opportunity to be limitless in the areas where I do shine. Awesome can be an empty word, full of false promises. And it shouldn't take a crisis for any of us to recognize that a paper plate is just a plate. It's not a failure. It doesn't matter how many likes you get on social media, or even if you don't post on Instagram every day. It's not a measure of worth. You may never be a brain surgeon or an astrophysicist. That's okay. We all have our own version of awesome, our own brilliance within us. And you will find it once you stop chasing it everywhere and realize that you are fine just as you are, even if you do occasionally fail a test or show up with the wrong paper plates. We all have limits. It's only by embracing those limits, acknowledging there are things you're never going to be able to do well, letting go of the unimportant, and recognizing that some days, getting through the next 15 minutes is the best you're going to get. It is only then that we are free to be, to create, and to soar. Accept your limits in order to embrace and engage your brilliance. The pursuit of the superlative has a place, as long as it's not the pursuit of illusions or impossible standards. Strive for fine. Accept okay. And when the unimportant fades away and you are working your brilliance, watch as you become your authentic version of amazing, incredible, and yes, even awesome. Thank you.